Okay, let's deep dive into this stack of sources you shared because they paint a picture of a really bold move here.
Yeah, it seems that way.
The core idea seems to be Hong Kong positioning itself pretty aggressively, doesn't it? Like, to be a leading next-gen financial center.
Exactly. And they are betting big on stablecoins as a key tool to get them there.
Right, and there's this key date circled on the calendar, August 1st, 2025. We need to talk about that.
Absolutely. That date pops up everywhere in the materials. And the sources we have, they give us a pretty comprehensive view, I think. We've got official regulatory documents, draft guidelines, straight from the HKMA, that's the Hong Kong Monetary Authority.
Okay, the official stuff.
Yeah, plus analysis from, legal experts who've really picked through the details, and then market reports, commentary pieces, exploring the wider strategy. It's quite a mix.
So our mission today is basically to piece all this together. We want to understand, what exactly this new stablecoin framework in Hong Kong involves. Why now? And what potential waves could it make? In the market, maybe even globally.
Yeah, looking at it from different angles, the regulatory viewpoint, definitely, but also the market opportunity side and those, interesting strategic angles that come up in the commentary.
We have different lenses to look through, which makes it fascinating. The rule book, the forecasts, the potential geopolitical side of things, it's all in there.
It really is.
All right, so let's set the stage. Where Hong Kong's coming from and the sheer scale of opportunity these sources are talking about. I mean, Hong Kong's not exactly new to the global finance game.
Right, not at all. It's a major player, consistently ranked up there. Top global financial centers, currently #1 in APAC, 3rd worldwide according to that Global Financial Centers Index mentioned.
So a strong starting point.
And that existing foundation is crucial because the potential growth forecast we're seeing for fintech in Hong Kong, they're just enormous. One report projects the market hitting, US $606 billion by 2032?
$600 billion, wow.
Yeah, with an average annual growth rate, they're anticipating of 28.5% over the next, 8 years or so.
28.5% growth annually for nearly a decade. That's explosive.
It really is. And the sources, they zero right in on digital assets and stablecoins specifically as key drivers for that growth.
Right. They mentioned some pretty impressive growth already happening too. Blockchain activity up 250%, digital assets up almost 30% just between 2022 and 2024.
Exactly. So these aren't just, tiny niche areas anymore. They're becoming pretty significant engines within that bigger fintech picture.
Yeah.
And the commentary pieces really capture the ambition here. Someone suggesting stablecoins could be the next big boom after AI.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, and that Hong Kong is trying to, quote, overtake on a curve by getting regulation in place early. It's about being proactive, trying to capture that innovation wave, but securely.
Okay, so huge potential, and the goal is to capture it securely. That brings us right to the how, this new regulatory framework. The sources highlight the Stablecoins Ordinance, the SO, passed by their Legislative Council, May 21st, 2025, and going live August 1st, 2025.
That date again. And it's key because from that day on, if you want to issue a stablecoin in Hong Kong, one that's pegged to the Hong Kong dollar or any other fiat currency, you need a specific license from the HKMA.
Need one. No exceptions.
No exceptions mentioned. The sources are very clear. Operating without that license. It's not just a slap on the wrist, it's a criminal offense.
Wow. Okay, so they're drawing a really clear line in the sand, and the criteria for getting and keeping that license, based on the HKMA's draft guidelines and legal analysis, they look pretty comprehensive, maybe even stringent.
Oh, they really are. The goal, as the documents lay it out, is all about building trust and ensuring stability. We can kind of break down what the sources tell us about these requirements. They focus on a few key areas.
Okay, first off, just the financial health of the company issuing the coin.
Precisely. They're not letting just anyone jump in. Issuers need minimum paid-up share capital, at least HK $25 million, or the equivalent.
25 million Hong Kong dollars. Okay.
Yeah, minimum. And beyond that, they have to continuously show they have enough financial resources for their business and, importantly, to manage an orderly exit if things go wrong. It's about making sure the company itself is solid.
Right, filtering out maybe the less stable players and then the core promise of a stablecoin.
Yeah.
Its value. How are they making sure stablecoins actually stay, stable?
This is a big one. The sources are incredibly strict here. Stablecoins must be fully backed at all times.
Fully backed, meaning?
Meaning the market value of the assets they hold in reserve has to always be equal to or actually exceed the value of the stablecoin out there in circulation. Non-negotiable.
And they're specific about what kind of assets can be used for that backing, right? It's not just anything goes.
Absolutely not. Very specific list. Chosen for safety, liquidity. We're talking things like short-term bank deposits.
Okay.
Highly liquid government or central bank debt. Very short maturity, like no longer than a year. 0% risk weighting, or in the domestic currency of the issuer.
So super safe stuff.
Extremely safe. They also allow cash from overnight reverse repos, or funds that only invest in these very safe asset types. And the guidelines note these reserves should generally be non-interest bearing.
So demanding the most conservative assets, basically cash or things almost as safe as cash, and these reserves, they have to be kept separate, protected.
Yes, segregation and proper safeguarding, explicitly mandated, prevents the issuer dipping into the reserves for, operational costs or other risky stuff.
Makes sense. What about getting your money back? If I hold a stablecoin, how quickly can I redeem it for actual fiat currency?
The guideline says holders need to be able to redeem without undue delay. And the expectation it specifies is typically within 1 business day of getting a valid request.
1 business day. That's pretty fast.
It is, unless the HKMA gives specific written permission for a delay, and any fees for redemption have to be reasonable. That 1-day turnaround, though, that's really important for user trust, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, so strict rules around the money itself, backing, assets, segregation, redemption speed. What about how the business itself is run, like risk management?
Another huge pillar. Licensees need robust risk management frameworks, covering a whole range of stuff.
Yeah. Credit
risk, liquidity, market, technology, operational, even reputation risk.
And the usual financial crime stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. AMLTF, anti-money laundering, and counter-terrorist financing risks. Big focus. They require implementing a 3 lines of defense model.
Which is?
It's standard in finance, really. Distinct roles for, like, the frontline business, then risk management oversight, and finally internal audit. Independent checks and balances, plus regular independent audits and reviews are mandatory.
The tech risk requirements looked particularly detailed in the draft guidelines. They really get into the weeds there.
They do. I mean, it makes sense, right? Given it's all digital, securing the tech is paramount. The sources detail requirements for managing private keys, those critical digital things that control the coins. Covers the whole life cycle. Specific security standards, like using air-gapped environments for significant keys.
Meaning offline?
Yeah, essentially physically separated, not connected to the internet. Multi-factor authentication for using keys. Secure backup stored in Hong Kong or another approved place, ideally multiple secure sites. They also cover broader IT security, network security, cybersecurity, threat intelligence, and having a solid IT disaster recovery plan.
So demanding serious enterprise-level security for the whole digital setup. What about the people in charge? The governance.
Crucial. Strong corporate governance is required. Standards for the board's makeup, ensuring members are, fit and proper. And there must be independent compliance and internal audit functions.
Independent?
Yeah, with clear reporting lines straight to senior management or the board so they aren't compromised. Proper oversight.
And finally, transparency. That seems like a big theme for building confidence here.
It absolutely is. The guidelines demand timely public disclosure from licensees, especially about their reserve assets and how redemption works.
Makes sense.
They also have to publish a detailed white paper for each type of stablecoin. It needs to cover the reserves, issuance redemption, the tech used, the risks involved, all laid out. Plus, annual audited financial statements, including a specific audit confirming the reserve assets.
Okay, that paints a very detailed picture of the framework. Seems designed to be, very secure, very conservative. Now, let's touch on the official reason why Hong Kong is doing this now, according to their documents.
Right. According to the consultation papers and other official sources we looked at, the basic reason given is that stablecoins, they have the potential to become widely used as a way to pay for things.
Okay, potential for mainstream adoption.
Exactly. And while that's an opportunity, it also brings risks. Risks to the financial system, market integrity, consumer protection, if it's not managed properly.
So the regulations are framed as necessary safeguards.
Pretty much. Necessary steps to provide safeguards, build public confidence, and ultimately allow for the safe, responsible integration of stablecoins into their financial system.
So fostering innovation, yes, but inside a very tightly controlled environment. trying to avoid the kind of problems we've seen elsewhere in crypto, enabling safe adoption.
Precisely. It's an effort to bring regulatory clarity, certainty, to a space that globally has often really lacked it.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit. Let's look at some of the broader strategic implications discussed in those commentary sources. Because beyond just the local market and safe adoption, some analysts are suggesting there's a much bigger strategic play happening here.
Yeah, this is where you see finance and maybe geopolitics start to intersect in the analysis. One pretty significant perspective is that by setting up this regulated stablecoin framework in Hong Kong, China might be helping to build a sort of financial plan B.
Plan B, meaning?
Well, potentially creating an alternative way for cross-border payments, one that could, in some situations, bypass the traditional SWIFT system.
Ah, SWIFT, the main messaging network for international bank transfers, largely influenced by US and European banks. So the idea is to build an alternative track.
Exactly. This regulated Hong Kong stablecoin network could, theoretically, allow for peer-to-peer transfers globally, reducing reliance on that existing correspondent banking network that SWIFT underpins. It's about potentially creating a parallel, independent financial infrastructure.
Interesting. And how does this connect to the idea of internationalizing the Chinese currency, the RMB?
The sources suggest this framework could provide a platform for that. While the initial focus might be stablecoins linked to, say, the Hong Kong dollar or the US dollar,
Right.
a regulated network in Hong Kong makes it a viable place for an offshore RMB stablecoin to potentially emerge and gain traction for international trade, financial transactions,
Right.
possibly expanding the global use of the RMB outside mainland China's capital controls.
So the ripples could spread much further than just Hong Kong itself. And the analysis points out that Hong Kong moving now gives it an advantage, doesn't it?
Yes, that's a really key point made in the commentary. While other big players, like the US, are still debating, still working through legislation on how to regulate stablecoins federally, Hong Kong is actually doing it. They're getting out ahead,
Setting the game rules early.
which can be a significant advantage.
Right.
Regulatory certainty is huge for attracting institutional investors, traditional finance firms. A lot of them have been hesitant about digital assets precisely because the rules weren't clear. Hong Kong is providing that clarity now.
And there are maybe already signs of this working. One source mentioned Ant Group.
Yeah, that was interesting. Ant Group, linked to Alibaba, huge payment networks. They're reportedly planning to launch a stablecoin business in Hong Kong, specifically targeting that August 1st date, aligning with the new framework.
That could be massive.
Potentially huge. Ant Group handles payment volumes in the trillions of dollars annually on their existing platforms. If they connect even a fraction of that into a regulated public stablecoin network in Hong Kong, well, it could really boost the network's volume and importance right from the start. It shows how established giants might leverage this new regulated space.
Okay, wow. So we've covered the ambitious market potential, the really detailed regulatory blueprint aiming for security and trust, the official reasons from the HK government, and these quite fascinating, potentially far-reaching strategic angles. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But what stands out to me is how the pieces seem to fit together. It's not just regulating crypto for regulation's sake. It seems like using regulation as a strategic tool.
Right.
Building a framework robust enough to attract traditional finance, build confidence, while potentially also serving these bigger strategic goals related to global financial plumbing, maybe?
It certainly looks like Hong Kong is aiming high, not just to be a hub for digital assets, but maybe the key hub for this next phase of finance, built on regulated digital currency.
That definitely seems to be the objective when you put together all the different perspectives from these sources. The regulation enabling the market growth, which could serve a larger strategic purpose.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into the sources, we've dug into Hong Kong's big push on regulated stablecoins. We've seen the comprehensive, pretty strict rules they're implementing, covering everything from asset backing and redemption speed to tech security and governance. And we've explored the potentially massive implications for market growth, attracting big financial players, maybe even reshaping global cross-border payments down the line.
It's definitely a significant development. It positions Hong Kong quite uniquely in the digital finance world right now. It feels like a very calculated, potentially game-changing move.
And that leaves us with something for you, the listener, to think about after this deep dive. Consider a future global financial system, one where traditional networks like SWIFT coexist and maybe even compete with new regulated cross-border payment rails built on things like these stablecoins. How might that shift reshape international trade, investment, maybe even the balance of economic power in the coming years?
Yeah, this Hong Kong framework, it might just be an early piece of that much bigger puzzle. It certainly raises some important questions about the future of financial sovereignty and how money moves globally.
That's our deep dive into these sources on Hong Kong's stablecoin strategy. We've laid out the details, the potential impacts. What stands out to you about all this? How do you see Hong Kong's approach affecting the future of finance? We'd love to hear your thoughts on what it all means.